what do you do when you feel your spouse is being overly critical? How do you address that? Rabbi Rutenberg.
Okay, so this is a very, very common question that one spouse, maybe both spouses, feel that the other spouse is too critical of them. In other words, yes, I make mistakes, but why are you always focused on my mistakes? Why aren't you seeing my strengths? Why aren't you focusing on my good qualities? So I would just say, first of all, we have a tendency as human beings to see our strengths and others' faults, right? Often this can be a challenge because our spouse sees our faults and we see their faults. So I would suggest, first of all, going back to what I was saying before, that if your spouse is critical of you, maybe you first have to look into yourself and see if the thing that they're critical of you about is actually something you need to work on. Normally we have like a defense mechanism that just goes up very quickly, and it's like a little wall that gets pushed up, or a big wall, and it's just, as soon as somebody criticizes us, our knee-jerk reaction very often is, oh yeah, you think I'm that? What about what you do? Or why would you say that I'm not, that I'm, let's say a wife is saying to her husband that you're not attentive enough with the kids, you're on your cell phone too much, right? Could happen sometimes, right? And instead of the husband looking into himself and saying, you know what, maybe I am, he'll say, you also do it. Or why always focusing on my problems? But I think that as mature adults, what we need to try to do is when somebody criticizes us, to actually think about it and say, maybe there is some merit to it. Maybe there is something that I should be working on. I very often, and I'm sure the panel here has the same situation, where people come to us for counseling, they tell us, Rabbi, how is it that the same advice you told my spouse, I've been telling it to him for 6 years, the same thing you said tonight, and suddenly you said it, and like a light bulb went on in his head, right? Why is that true? And the reason is because criticism very often is not able to be accepted if it's presented in a certain way that makes the person feel judged and feel put down. So I would suggest that when it comes to criticism in general, that we try to do a few things that will make the criticism much more likely to be accepted. And the first one is to never criticize the entire person. You never want to say, you're always late. You don't pay enough attention to me. You're not, whatever, fill in the blank. Because most human beings have no way to process that information, and as soon as somebody tells us that, we shut down. So first and foremost, even if you think that that's true, which hopefully you don't think that's true, but even if at the moment you think it's true, you don't want to focus on the entire person. You want to focus on a specific situation, a specific event. This time, when you were with the kids, I saw you were on your phone a lot. I really appreciate it if you don't do that. So criticism, I think, presented the right way, makes a very, very big difference. And also, just good advice in general is, as we say this regarding parenting, but I think it's very true with our husband and wife as well, is to catch the person doing something right. And what that means is that you find ways to say positive things. For every negative comment, you should strive to have 4 or 5, some people say even 6, positive comments. And very often in our very fast-paced lives, we're so busy just trying to keep everything together that we end up being a lot more critical than we realize we are.